All right, so what is spark knock? Spark knock or detonation is an uncontrolled combustion of the air to fuel mixture that occurs out of sync with ignition timing. So typically the engine will be under load, and just because it's the most common, we'll say they put a lower octane fuel in. What'll happen is it'll be fine at the gas station. You'll be pulling out, you'll get out onto the road. You might even still be fine up there, but when you get out on the highway or something, you'll notice an audible spark knock. You may also notice a decrease in power, but not always. It is okay to put a higher octane fuel into a car than it calls for. It is never, ever okay to put a lower one in. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. It is not a good idea. You will break your shit. Alright, Aiden, so what causes spark knock and how do I prevent it? Well, today we're going to talk about 4 main causes of spark knock. So the first one we're going to talk about today is going to be high cylinder temps. We can go about fixing those a couple different ways. You can address this through exhaust scavenging or overlap. Basically having 2 of the valves open at the same time. More or less. It's more complicated than that, I promise. On some high horsepower applications, you might either adjust your tune, you might play with methanol to get your cylinder temps a little cooler, or a combination of both. Another one you might run into would be a lean air-to-fuel ratio. Typically, when I have seen this, it's been mechanically related. Another thing you could run into with that, though, is with your tune, someone's got the wrong stoichiometric data in there. I've seen some weird stuff with injectors, injector pulse width and all that. So another one I see quite often, this is more in the tuning world than anything. You see way too much spark advance. I mean, this one's fairly simple. You just got to retard your spark to fix it, but lots of times I see these tuners just trying to go way too aggressive with the spark, and done. And finally, how could I forget about this one? Octane rating. So simple, but everyone ignores it. Your car is set from the manufacturer to be ran on a certain octane. Usually you can find this information in your owner's manual. If not, usually a quick Google search will tell you. Basically, you can run more octane than you're required to. You cannot run less. The car will not run right if you run less. The only thing that will happen is if you use a higher octane rating, we'll say you're putting 93 into a car that takes 91, you won't gain the benefit of 93, but you also won't do anything to harm your vehicle. Whereas if you're using a lower number, we'll say we're putting 87 in this time, you're not giving the engine what it needs. The other side, you're giving it too much, which it's fine with. It can deal with that. But on the other side, if you don't give it enough, you are going to seriously hurt your motor. So what happens if I have spark knock and choose to ignore it? Please don't do this. Spark knock is dangerous. It can lead to your car needing irreparable damage. I don't mean irreparable damage as in something that cannot fully be repaired. I mean as in like a $15,000, $16,000 car needing an $8,000 motor. At that point, are you really even going to do it? Or buy a new car? One of the ways it can damage the motor is going to be via cylinder pressure, excessive cylinder pressure. So what starts happening is, as it starts knocking, your motor's spinning. And basically, one of these comes out of time with the rest of that and starts fighting that rotating motion. I've personally seen 3 or 4 motors destroyed this way. Cop cars, normal passenger cars, trucks, everything. All right, so compression. One other factor to look at when looking at spark knock is going to be your compression ratio. This is where cylinder pressure comes into play a little bit. High compression motors really don't like low-grade fuel. 87, 89, I haven't had too much issue with, but those two usually, depending on what you have in your area. And once you start adding like a supercharger and a turbocharger, you already have a 12-to-1 compression motor that then jumps even higher under boost to, like, we'll just say 15-to-1. It's going to have a really hard time. You're going to have to make sure you put some really quality fuel in that, and that gets expensive real quick, especially once you pass the capabilities of 93. All right, so dieseling is going to be exactly what it sounds like. It's what would happen in a diesel car, in a diesel truck. So you take your key out of your ignition, and the vehicle continues to run for a few seconds. I've seen it go up to a minute. And this happens mostly because you basically lose control of the ignition cycle in that one cylinder. It's doing its own thing. It's fighting the motor. You don't have any spark going to it. It's just going like a diesel. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if there's something you guys want to see. If there's more stuff you want me to go in depth on, do whatever. Thanks.